manager here with the Department of Water Resources. I also have with me Neely Miller. A lot of you have spoken with him for grants, and then I also have Justin Ferguson. And we are the three that typically will be working with you for your grants, but we also have a pretty large grant team in the background. We have some other folks in here, 2 of our engineers and some other people online. With that, we'll just go ahead and get started. So we're going to be doing an overview of our program and website, and then some types of board grants for FY 2027, our grant schedule, criteria and application process, awards and reimbursement process, and then we'll follow it up with some Q&As. But please feel free to raise your hand if you do have any questions while we're going through this to clarify information. Some general housekeeping, please keep your microphone off unless you're asking a question. This is going to be a microphone looking symbol. It should have a line through it whenever it's off. It won't be a speaker. That's on at the bottom right there. That's where you'll hear us from. There's also a camera for speaking. Please turn on your camera so we can see that you're talking. And then we also have a raise hand or react button that's available on your screen. Also, you can use the chat function and type it in there if you don't want to verbally ask a question, and we can take any of them that way as well. So for FY 2027, our grants available are going to be the Aging Infrastructure Grants. We typically refer to this as the AIG. We have Flood Management Grants, FMG, our Groundwater to Surface Water Conversion Grants. We refer to those conversions, Measuring and Monitoring Grants. Typically, we just call those telemetries. All of these are competitive, and funding is limited and is dependent on final board approval. Some previous statistics, just to kind of give you some background here. In this table, aging infrastructure, total cumulative from FY 22 through 26. We've awarded 127 different contracts through 6 rounds of funding. There's been $75 million appropriated for these funding rounds. And as of January of 2026, we had 40 active contracts and 28 projects that had been completed. Flood management, that's one of the oldest grant programs that we still have today. We've awarded 89 through 9 rounds, and that one has had $7.4 million purposefully appropriated for those. There were 6 active contracts and 62 completed projects. Flood managements tend to go pretty quick. Groundwater to surface water conversions, these are really new. We've only had these for 2 rounds, and we've issued 26 awards. There's been 32 million budgeted for that, and 0 have been completed to date. Measuring and monitoring or telemetry, those are also new, and 17 have been awarded through 2 rounds with a total of 815,000, and also 0 that were completed as of January of 26. So for 2027, we're actually going to have a total of $48 million available for funding. 30 million is going to be under the aging infrastructure, 2.2 million through flood management, which includes 1 million that was an additional appropriation from legislature. For groundwater to surface water conversions, 14.7 million. And measuring and monitoring, there's $1 million budgeted for this. So this is a screenshot of our website under the Idaho Water Resource Board Financial Program and Grants page. And the address for that is with the arrow up at the top. Down below, we also have what you see as our grant programs. And they have drop-down carrots. So if you just click on one of those carrots, it'll actually expand and provide some additional information to you. This also has our contact information at the very top in that yellow box. You can email us or mail us, and you can also call our state office to get a hold of one of us. Additionally, within this page, on our grants page, if you expand any one of these grant programs, say right here, this has measuring and monitoring grants expanded, it shows at the beginning of this when the applications are accepted. All of these are set up in the exact same way. So for measuring and monitoring, this is going to open July 1st for FY 2027. The second arrow, this is just showing that we have the grant criteria and application instructions, so PDF. It'll also have the last updated date that was approved by the board. And then there's an applicant information sheet, which is required as part of our application for each one of these grants. So now we're just going to walk through each one of our different grants and what the criteria are, the funding and such, and our due dates. So aging infrastructure grants are open statewide. The purpose is for rehabilitating or improving Idaho's irrigation water infrastructure and ensuring long-term water resource stability and sustainability. This does require a 50% cost share up to $2 million per award. The applications are due August 4th of 2026, and we expect to be awarding projects in September. You can also see here the list of eligible entities. If you're an individual, you must go through an eligible entity. Some example projects listed here are, for instance, dam rehabilitation, spillway repairs, and new head gates, etc. Ineligible projects are projects that are underway or completed prior to the award date, and wastewater and municipal water systems. Groundwater to surface water conversion grants. These are specific to the Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer area of common groundwater supply. They are not available statewide. These are to provide funding to help entities in the ESPA convert from groundwater to surface water. This has, for temporary conversions, a 50% cost share, or if it's a permanent conversion, a 75% cost share. The applications are due July 10th, 2026, and we expect to award these in September. This also lists the eligible entities, and again, if it's an individual, they must apply through one of the eligible entities to be their sponsor. Some example projects are irrigation fields, so for a field that has been irrigated with groundwater solely, in order to move it to more surface water, this would be a conversion project. We've also had some municipal parks that were traditionally watered with groundwater, but they were close enough to a canal that they could convert to surface water. And when surface water was available, water the parks. Ineligible projects, projects that are underway or completed prior to the award date. The next is our measuring and monitoring grants, also called telemetry, and these have been opened statewide. Last year, they were closed to only the ESPA. These are going to provide funding for the installation of measuring and monitoring equipment for groundwater and surface water diversions. There is a preference for projects within the ESPA. It has a 50% cost share of up to $250,000. The application period opens on July 1st, and funds will be awarded at regular board meetings. Also listing eligible entities here. And again, if it's an individual user, they'll need to work through one of these eligible entities as our sponsor. Some example projects are new monitoring wells, flumes, weirs, telemetry equipment, software development, and automation equipment. Ineligible projects are projects that are underway or completed prior to the award date. The last of the four grants, the programs that we're going to talk about, is the flood management grant, and this is open statewide. It's used to prevent or reduce flooding damage in Idaho streams and rivers. This has a 50% cost share of up to $200,000. Applications were due June 5th, and funding is expected to be awarded in August. We actually just finished scoring and are working through final ranking for these grant applications. The eligible entities for these are listed below, and some example projects. These are used for bank rehabilitation, plug and redivert to natural channels, LiDAR, bridge repair, etc. Some ineligible projects are projects that are underway or completed prior to the award date. So here we're just going to look at our grant application and award cycle for FY 2027. On the left-hand column, you can see each of the 4 grants that we have, followed by the date that applications are due, followed by the date that we expect to award. The second column is the list of 5 phases of a grant cycle, starting with application consultation, followed by staff review and ranking, then finance committee and board meeting presentations, after which, if awarded, we have contract development, and then contract management through invoicing and final inspection and completion. The calendar at the right shows the months April through March, and this helps to show where this falls in that entire cycle. So again, for flood management, they were due at the beginning of June, and we expect to go before the board in July, which is the R in July. The next part of this will be contract development. It can take a couple of months for us to get through contract development, or several months. Following contract development, then we have long-term contract management. And some of these contracts could last 3 years, and some of them could be as quick as 6 months. The last one on here is telemetry, measuring, and monitoring. You'll notice that there's a lot of green and R's, and that's because that's open year-round. And so we will be working to present any applications we receive to the board when, within 45 to 60 days of application receiving. So now we're going to move into criteria and application requirements. We recently redid all of our criteria formatting so that they were the same. So if you looked at one criteria, you could look at the next and find the information in about the same location. Each one of these starts with the program information and the purpose for the grants, followed by the program focus and eligible projects. We also list the geographic area. We list the eligible entities and that individuals must work with the sponsor. And then we also list the funding limit and grant award limit. It's very important to note that we can only accept one project per application.
Okay, I'm in, yeah.
And applications that do not meet eligibility will not be scored and will be returned. Into our application requirements, we also require the applicant information sheet. This is where I pointed to you earlier on our website. An application must also include a cover letter that should list the summary, the project manager's contact information, the amount requested for funding, the total project costs, and any other funding sources that you'll be using. The application and attachments should also list a table of contents. Whenever you have very long and lengthy applications, it's easier if you list a table of contents so we know where it is in your application to find the information. We do appreciate pictures, diagrams, and designs attached with your applications. The budget and cost estimate really needs to be defined with your in-kind estimates and any other. So breaking out the labor, the materials, your design work, all of these things should really be laid out in your budget as detailed as possible. Note that you should and can add a contingency to your budget. We know that prices are rising on a lot of materials, and we see most applications come in with between a 5 and 10% contingency added. The location of the project with coordinates or PLS and a detailed map. It's really important we can find where your project is. And additionally, the detailed map should show where each location is of your project. So if you have 5 diversions on one reach of a river, we would need to know where each one of those diversions are. We would also like to know the reference stage or phase of a project and prior grant awards. So if you're in phase 2, please let us know where you are and that you're in phase 2 and that we've awarded you phase 1 so we can refer to that prior one. The picture, right, this is an example of one that we have received where they are in phase 2, but this is a very good example of laying out 3 different phases and defining where each one of these are, the entire makeup of the project. Additionally, please include letters of support for your project. Some of our applications are quite large and exceed 512 megabytes, which you might find hard to send to us. Please break those out. And you can divide it up with your applicant information sheet in one attachment, your main body application in another, and then your attachments in a separate file, and send those to us with no more than 512 megabytes each. If you need additional ways to send us applications, please reach out to us and we'll work with you. Some additional applicant information has to do with some different grant types. So aging infrastructure grant applications. If there is going to be a reduction to through incidental seepage, we need to see a mitigation plan and how you are going to have 0 impacts. Additionally, those costs should be broken out for the costs not related to seepage reduction. For example, if you're going to be piping a section and that will reduce seepage, but you're also going to install some telemetry, which is not dependent on that, break out those telemetry costs separately. Groundwater to surface water conversion grant applications. This one is also going to require you to list the groundwater rights on the lands that you're converting. We also require the notice of insurance. So proof of insurance for the sponsor, the applicant. And then you can submit an application to us by email, by mail, or in person. All of this information is located on each one of the criteria at the end. We also have it on the front page of our grant and financial website page. Next, we're going to get into awarding projects. So here we have a flow chart that shows how it is that we work through receiving an application to final award. On the top left-hand side, we have an application that we confirm has been received. We are going to quickly make sure that the application does meet eligibility requirements. If it doesn't meet eligibility, we are going to return it, and we're going to tell you why it is that it's not eligible. If it is eligible, it's going to move into the application review and scoring. This is after the due date. So once all of the applications that are eligible are received, they are then reviewed and scored together by at least 3 staff members. These scored applications are then ranked and listed for proposal to the Water Resource Board Finance Committee. They're going to be also presented with recommendations from staff. We're going to give a brief summary of what these applications are proposing, the funding request, any other funds that are going to be used, and what that timeline looks like. The Finance Committee will look at each of these, and then they will recommend what they're going to make a recommendation for what they think should be approved to the full board. And then that's when it'll go before the full board at a regular meeting. Again, an application is not considered approved and awarded until it is adopted by the full board. So I have here a semi-busy chart, but it's just to show you that our workload increases quite quickly when we get into the grant season. And so the blue line shows all the contracts that we're working on that have not been executed yet for the Planning and Projects Bureau. The orange bars show actual grants that have been awarded. So we had our flood management grants in 2025 for FY26, there was 8 awarded. And then we had the conversions, 15 were awarded, followed by 8 telemetry, and then 38 aging infrastructure. So you can see the workload for developing contracts grew rather quickly over several months. But then that workload started coming down as contracts became executed. So if you're wondering where your contract is, please just reach out to us and we will walk you through where it is in the process. But this is to help show you that it does take quite some time to work through all of those, because our contract department is also working through other project awards like regional water sustainability, our Surface Water Coalition operational efficiencies, agreement not to divert through our transactions program, cloud seeding contracts, and this is just for our bureau. There are other bureaus in the agency that are also developing contracts. Awarded projects. So continuing on contracting, you're going to see a couple of items here. The state of Idaho Controller's Office requires 2 different registrations that you'll be required to partake in if you're awarded funding. The first is IPRO. It doesn't stand for anything except that it's 4 letters put together. It's not an abbreviation. What it is, though, is a vendor supply registration in LUMA through the state of Idaho. It allows suppliers to update their company information and contacts, view and respond to sourcing events online, see bid results, receive purchase orders and contracts online, and view the status of various financial transactions. You need to go through their support services if you're receiving any errors with them, because we can't manipulate their system. I also have in here parentheses, use commodity code, any commodity code you want, like spaceship. If you've gone through registration with iPro before, you know that in order for it to accept your registration, you must put in a commodity code. It doesn't matter what commodity code you put in. So spaceship is one that a lot of people use. We also have payment works. So back in the day, like 2 years ago and more, you used to turn in an IRS W-9 in order to give us your tax information so that we could then send you a check. This is all done through the state of Idaho's portal, Payment Works. There's no longer any paper formatting to do this. It must be done online. Another part of awarded projects through contracting is your proof of insurance. You are going to have to provide proof of insurance in order for a contract to get executed with us. Additionally, when we request information to begin drafting a contract, please provide that information within 90 days of award. We may be requesting clarification on your scope of work, your project timeline, or we may need additional contact information. We also require that a contract be signed within 60 days that is proposed for signature. If this doesn't meet up with one of your board meetings, please let us know so that we can extend out that timeline. A final note on contracting is the conversion grants. They are going to include a 20-year memorandum of agreement that is going to require annual reporting. Additionally, the groundwater rights of converted lands may not be placed in the water supply bank. Now we get into reimbursement requests. This is once an award has been, the project's been awarded, we have a contract in place, now you can start seeking reimbursement. So on the right here, I have a sample letter that just meets the requirements of what it is that we need to issue reimbursement. It must be on a sponsor's letterhead. It must have the contract number and the project name. It must be billed to the Water Resource Board and enlist the total invoiced amount, the amount requested. There is now a 10% less retainage, so keep that in mind for these future awards. You're going to also include your paid invoices and in-kind breakdown with descriptions, and I'll get into in-kind in the next slide, and include any other funding sources. Additionally, if this is your final reimbursement request, you also need to put a paragraph in there. This is your final invoice. List all your funding sources, your total project costs, and include a certificate of project completion and photos. So here I've just put together a simple breakdown of what are in-kind. If you invoice us for in-kind, what it needs to look like. And to note, if you're expecting to use in-kind cost share, it needs to be in your application as well. So that way we can put it in our contract. If you come to us with in-kind after we've already developed your contract and it was never brought up through the application period, we're likely not going to be able to reimburse for this. So this one is broken up on the left-hand side, first with labor by each employee, then equipment and the type of equipment, and then by materials. We also have the rates the dates that those were used, the standard or unit that was used, and the activity by which. So these are all the same things you would expect to see on an invoice that somebody bills you in order to pay them. We also need to see that for your in-kind breakdown. Some additional remarks on reimbursement requests. An active contract is required for reimbursement, and we can't reimburse for invoices prior to the award date. And the award date is the date that the board approves the project and awards funding. In-kind documentation must be billed to the sponsor and include employee name or equipment use, and that should say it should be billed to us or to the sponsor if it's in-kind from somebody else, and then you would bill us. Documentation must be retained by the sponsor. That means that if you are billing for in-kind, your record should be kept up to date and have that information in there for any auditing purposes in the future. The Water Resource Board determines reasonable value of in-kind work. That just means that it's reasonable costs. And it must be in an original application and discussed prior to contract. Again, reporting may be required as part of the contract and reimbursement process. So earlier I mentioned that our conversions have a memorandum of agreement, which includes 20-year reporting. If failure to report within that 20-year happens, we may seek to receive back some of the funding that we provided. There's also a 10% holdback on reimbursements until the end of the project. This is new to the FY27 grants. This language wasn't in our criteria before. It is in our criteria now. And then we'll hold that 10% until we receive the final invoice along with a certificate of project completion. Please provide pictures at the end of your project, but we may come out to inspect as well. That's also in the contract that we could come out to inspect. And we like to see the great work that y'all have done. And we really like to put it out there in news releases and such. And with that, we're just going to go ahead and get into questions if anybody has any. No, that was a lot of information. We also have a QR code on here. So this is if you could just scan this and do the survey later, but we're just asking for some feedback. So I think it's Mariah.
Yeah, I was just curious, what is your procedure to becoming a certified person or group to apply for the grant?
As an eligible entity?
Yes, thank you, an eligible entity. I couldn't think of the words.
That's okay. No, yeah. So you just need to be one of the eligible entities. Typically, these are irrigation districts, water districts, groundwater districts, irrigation companies. I think some of them, there are some laterals or that are listed on some of our criteria. So I think it depends on which criteria you're looking at and what your entity is that might not meet that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like one, I work with different entities for different things. So that's what we're trying to figure out if there's something specific for, I don't know. I can also reach out and give you examples directly.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is Annie Connor from Clearwater Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hi, Annie.
And my question is, do you accept or how do you document volunteer labor at the and can we use the federal volunteer rate? And
yes,
I can give an example if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Our new criteria definitely details that a lot better than what our old criteria did. So that's going to be close to the last page on every one of our criteria on our website. And It does talk about donated hours, and it can be at the federal rate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be listed out just like I showed earlier on the in-kind breakdown, and just specify that it's donated, but by volunteer, volunteer 1, 2, those kind of things.
Okay, and that would be the same for donated materials also?
Yes. Donated materials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
We got a question to go over the mitigation plan for zero impact on seepage criteria for aging infrastructure grants. And does this only apply if the project is in a groundwater management area?
did you want to take it?
We can, yeah. So in your application, we're looking for you to outline how your project is not going to have a negative impact on the ESPA. And I want to say it does only apply if you're in a groundwater management area with our current criteria.
For critical groundwater.
Or
That's what
critical,
it was.
yeah, or critical groundwater area, which can be outside the ESPA because there's plenty of,
That's right. Does that cover your question? Let's see, Mary Sue Chase.
I think we'd also want to see if it does fall in one of those areas, we'd want to see the costs broken out as well associated with that part of the project.
yeah. And I didn't see the question, so I'm not sure.
We're in good shape.
Okay, good. Yeah, that one's gonna be new to navigate for some folks. Any other questions?
Online so far.
Someone in the chat did ask if we would make the slides available after, and I think Justin provided that we would also be posting this on the website.
Yes, we're gonna be putting this, the recording out, and then we can make the presentation available as well. Yeah,
There was another comment in the chat. I think one of the slides on the aging infrastructure deadline said August 4th was the deadline. And I believe the criteria is August 7th. So we clarified that in the chat.
great. Any other
Question
questions?
for
We have
you
some-
on what classifies as a single project. I believe when you were describing the grants, you had mentioned that they apply to like a project. Does that mean, like, I guess, is that by connection, or can you, like, could you do multiple diversions, or do they have to be in the same area? Like, how do you define a single project, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So the way we've been handling that is that the projects have to all be connected, right? So as an example, one of the projects that we were looking at in this most recent round of flood applications, it's across the same stretch, the same reach of the river. And it's a bunch of separate little projects that together make up one big phase of the project. And that way we can look at it as one single project. Now, if this was, you've got, a phase here and a phase over here and a phase kind of over, then we've got to look at it. There's not anything that ties these projects together other than
They're similar.
yeah, they're similar, and it's something for the entity as a whole, I guess. Does that kind of answer your question, Ben?
Yeah, you need to be able to reasonably access the entire project area together. So if your projects are spanning across multiple different owners and you could do each of these independently, then I don't think that would be one project. I think it would be multiple different projects. If that helps explain it as well, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely if you have questions about, does this seem like a phase of different projects or does this seem like one project? Just send it to the grants team email and ask us, this is what we're looking at. Do you consider this one project or multiple projects? And it benefits you if it's multiple because then you have more chances for additional funding also.
There was a comment in the chat about clarifying where invoices need to be sent when they are emailed. And I've went ahead and dropped in the link or the email address. It's an IDWR payable at idwr.idaho.gov. That's where we want all of our invoices sent. But we'd also request that you copy whatever, on that email, the contract manager that will be listed in your contract, for whatever grant, if awarded.
Yeah, great. And I was told that if I have an opportunity to plug in here, we are doing reimbursements for the rest of FY 26 until next week. And then we will not be paying out until July 1st. So if there is anybody who has a contract who needs a reimbursement, send it in immediately because they're going to take a pause for 2 weeks to end out the fiscal year.
Nothing online.
Any other questions? Did everybody take a snip of the survey so we can get some feedback? We would love to hear it. We're really trying hard to improve our program so that we can help you better and get additional resources out there. So I think it's 30, how many questions we got? 34 questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes through the entire process, just kind of like what we just did. How was the application process? How was the criteria seem to you? Are you getting enough support on your end from us? What else do you need from us? And then also you could let us know how this workshop worked out for you today, if you got the information that you needed, or what else that you need from us so that we can improve the program. Yeah. I think.
I think that's it. Yeah, that survey should take about 10 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We really would appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
And feel free to reach out to any of us after this, and we can help clarify any questions or answer any project questions.
Yeah, and we will take the results of that survey and we will give that feedback back to the board. And we're going to be transparent in this entire process. This is it. This is what we asked. This is what we received. And this is what we're going to try to do moving forward so we can improve this. Yeah. Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, again, our information is out there. Please email us. And like I said, myself, Justin, and Newly, we are on that grants team email. So we'll get back to you. We have lots of other folks that are helping us in the grant program. And they are diligently working on contracts as well and through scoring and evaluations. But we're so glad that you made it out here with us today. So I really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.